I wasn't supposed to hear her. The Romano estate at night felt like a place that held its breath, like even the walls knew better than to make a sound. And I had learned quickly, growing up as the maid's daughter, that silence here wasn't peace. It was a rule. My mother always said the same thing before every shift, before every long hallway polished to perfection, before every room that smelled like money and secrets. Keep your head down, Emily. Don't listen. Don't look. I used to think she meant the people, the men in tailored suits, the guests who never smiled with their eyes. But that night, as I wiped down the marble floor outside the east wing, I realized she meant the house itself. The clock in the hallway read 11:47 p.m., the kind of late where even the security guard spoke in whispers, and the only sound should have been my cloth sliding across stone. Then I heard it. Soft. Barely there. A sound that didn't belong in a place this controlled. I froze, my hand still pressed against the cold marble, my breath catching halfway in my chest. It came again. A quiet, broken sound. Someone crying. I straightened slowly, every instinct telling me to walk away, to pretend I hadn't heard anything, but my feet didn't move. The sound wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside the wall. I turned, my eyes tracing the smooth surface beside me, the pale paneling that looked flawless under the chandelier light. No cracks, no seams, nothing that suggested there was anything behind it. But the crying continued, soft and uneven, like whoever it belonged to had learned how to stay quiet. My heart started pounding, loud enough I was sure it would give me away, even though I didn't know who I was hiding from. Hello, I whispered before I could stop myself, my voice so small it barely existed. The crying stopped. Just like that. Silence rushed back in, heavy and absolute, pressing against my ears. I waited. 1 second. 2. 10. Nothing. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, my fingers tightening around the cloth in my hand. This was exactly what my mother warned me about. Not the people. The house. I should have gone back to work. I should have walked away, finished my shift, and pretended this moment never happened. But something about the silence felt wrong, like it was listening to me now. Slowly, I stepped closer to the wall, my sneakers barely making a sound against the floor. I reached out, hesitating just inches away before pressing my palm flat against the paneling. It was colder than the rest of the house. Not just cool marble cold. Empty cold. Like there was space behind it where there shouldn't be. My pulse spiked. I can't hear you, I said, barely louder than a breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, so faint I almost convinced myself I imagined it, a voice came through. Do you hear me too? I stumbled back like the wall had pushed me, my heart slamming hard enough to hurt. That wasn't an echo. That wasn't pipes or wind or anything that could be explained away. That was a person, behind a wall that wasn't supposed to exist. I stared at the paneling, my reflection faint in its polished surface, my own wide eyes looking like they belonged to someone else. In all the years my mother had worked here, in all the nights I'd waited for her to finish cleaning rooms that didn't belong to us, no one had ever mentioned this. No one had ever said the Romano estate had hidden rooms, which meant one thing. They weren't meant to be found. And somehow, I just found one. I should have walked away. That was the first thought that came back once my heartbeat slowed enough for me to think clearly again, but my feet stayed rooted to the marble floor like the house had decided I was not leaving just yet. I stared at the wall, at the exact place where the voice had come from, trying to convince myself that I had imagined it, that exhaustion or curiosity had twisted a normal sound into something impossible. But I knew what I heard. A voice does not echo like that. A voice answers. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry, and stepped closer again, slower this time, like I was approaching something alive. Who are you? I asked, my voice trembling despite how hard I tried to steady it. Silence followed, long enough that doubt started to creep back in, curling around my thoughts, making me question everything. Then, just when I thought it was over, the voice returned, softer than before, like it had to travel a long way just to reach me. I do not remember, she said. The words sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the cold wall beneath my hand. Not remember. Not will not say. That was different. I pressed my palm harder against the panel, as if I could somehow get closer through it. How long have you been in there? I asked. There was a pause, longer this time, and I could almost feel her thinking on the other side, like the question itself was something unfamiliar. I do not know, she answered finally. There is no day. There is no night. My chest tightened. The Romano estate was massive, with windows in every wing, light pouring in during the day and soft lamps glowing through the night. The idea of a place inside it that had no sense of time felt wrong, like something hidden outside the rules the rest of the world followed. I glanced down the hallway instinctively, half expecting someone to be watching me, but it remained empty, the chandeliers casting the same perfect light, the same untouched silence. "Why are you there?" I whispered. This time, the answer came quicker, almost like she had been waiting for me to ask. "Because I know something I should not." The words settled heavy in the air between us, even with the wall separating us, and I felt something shift inside me, something deeper than fear. This was not just a hidden room. This was a secret someone had chosen to bury. My fingers curled slightly against the surface, tracing along the edges of the paneling, searching for anything that might give away an opening, a seam, a weakness. The wall was seamless, perfectly constructed, like it had never been meant to be opened again. "Who put you there?" I asked, even though a part of me already knew I might not want the answer. The silence that followed stretched longer than before, and for a second, I thought she might not respond at all. Then her voice came back, quieter, but steadier, like she had decided something. "My brother." I frowned, confusion cutting through the tension. "Your brother?" I repeated, my mind already trying to place it, trying to connect it to something I knew about this house, about the people who owned it. The Romano family was not a mystery in the way most families were. Their names were known. Their history was documented. There were no missing siblings. No hidden daughters. Nothing that matched what I was hearing now. "What is his name?" I asked carefully. There was a slight shift in her breathing, like even saying it carried weight. When she finally spoke, the name landed with a force that made my entire body go still. Alexander Romano. The hallway suddenly felt colder, the air heavier, and for the first time since I heard the crying, I understood exactly why my mother had warned me not to listen. Because some secrets are not hidden to be protected. They are hidden because once you hear them, you cannot ever pretend you did not. The name did not echo. It settled. Heavy. Final. Like the house itself recognized it and chose to stay silent. My fingers slipped from the wall, and for a second I just stood there, staring at nothing, trying to steady the sudden rush of thoughts that did not want to make sense. Alexander Romano did not have a sister. That was not an opinion. That was fact. Everyone who worked here knew the same version of his life. Only child, raised in power, built everything that stood around us with control, so precise it felt effortless. There were portraits in the West Hall, photographs in silver frames, articles my mother used to whisper about when she thought I was not listening. None of them mentioned a sister. Not once. Which meant one thing. She was never supposed to exist. I stepped back from the wall, my breath shallow now, my mind racing through every possible explanation that did not involve what I had just heard. Maybe she was lying. Maybe this was some kind of trick, something designed to test loyalty, to see who would listen and who would speak. That thought alone made my stomach tighten. People here did not make mistakes twice. But then I remembered her voice. The way it trembled. The way it hesitated like it had forgotten how to speak to someone who could answer back. That was not a trap. That was someone who had been alone too long. Emily. My name came from behind me, low and calm, but it hit me like a sudden drop in temperature. I turned too quickly, my heart jumping into my throat, and found him standing at the far end of the hallway. Alexander Romano did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The silence around him shifted the moment he stepped into it, like the house itself adjusted to his presence. He wore a dark suit, perfectly tailored, not a single crease out of place. His posture relaxed in a way that made it clear he was always in control. His eyes, dark and steady, rested on me with a focus that felt like being measured. "You are still here," he said, his tone neutral, but there was something underneath it. Not anger. Not yet. Awareness. I swallowed, forcing myself to move, to step away from the wall as if I had just been finishing my work. "I was just cleaning," I said, lifting the cloth slightly, hoping my voice did not give me away. He glanced at the floor, at the section I had barely touched, then back at me. It was a small movement, but it felt like he had already seen everything. "At midnight?" he asked. The question was simple. The answer felt impossible. I opened my mouth, then closed it again, my thoughts scrambling for something believable, something safe. The hallway felt narrower now, the distance between us shrinking even though he had not moved. Behind me, the wall stayed silent. No voice. No sound. Like it understood what was happening and chose to disappear. He took a step forward, slow, deliberate, and the sound of his shoes against the marble echoed far louder than it should have. My staff usually finishes before 11, he continued, his gaze never leaving mine. My mother asked me to stay late. I said quickly, the first excuse that came to mind, even though I was not sure if it would hold. For a moment, he said nothing, just watched. The kind of silence that made you question every word you had just spoken. Then his eyes shifted, just slightly, toward the wall beside me. Not long, not obvious, but enough. Enough to tell me he knew exactly where I had been standing. Enough to tell me this was not the first time someone had stood there. My pulse spiked, loud in my ears, and I forced myself not to look back, not to react, not to confirm what he was already suspecting. Go home, Emily, he said finally, his voice softer now, but no less controlled. It is late. It sounded like permission. It felt like a warning. I nodded, lowering my gaze, and moved past him carefully, every step measured, every breath controlled, until I reached the end of the hallway. I did not run. Not until I was outside, the cold night air hitting my face, breaking the grip the house seemed to have on me. Only then did I stop, my hands shaking, my mind replaying every second of what had just happened. The voice, the name, the way his eyes had paused on that wall. And one thought, louder than all the others, settled in my chest like something that would not leave. He knew. I did not sleep that night. Not really. I lay in the small room I shared with my mother above the staff quarters, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second over and over until it stopped feeling like memory and started feeling like something I was still inside. The way his eyes had shifted, the pause, the certainty behind it. He knew, or at least, he knew enough to be dangerous. My mother stirred once beside me, turning in her sleep, and I held my breath instinctively, like even thinking too loudly might carry through the walls. The Romano estate did not just hold secrets. It listened for them. By the time the clock read 5:12 a.m., I gave up on pretending I would rest. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake her, and pulled on my sweater, my hands still unsteady from everything I had learned and everything I had not. The sky outside was just beginning to lighten, that soft gray before sunrise that made everything feel suspended between two worlds. Safe enough to move, quiet enough to disappear. I told myself I was only going back to confirm it, to make sure I had not imagined the voice, the words, the impossible truth hidden inside that wall. But deep down, I knew that was not why I was going. I was going because she had answered me, because someone in that house had spoken my name back into the silence, and now I could not pretend she was not there. The hallway looked the same as it always did when I stepped into it again. Polished floors, perfect light, no sign that anything had ever happened. But I noticed things now that I had not before. The way the air felt slightly colder near the east wing. The way the wall I had touched looked just a little too new compared to the rest of the paneling. The kind of detail you only see after you know where to look. I moved slowly, my steps quieter than usual, my ears straining for any sound that did not belong. Nothing. No guards. No footsteps. Just the low hum of the house waking up somewhere far away. When I reached the wall, I stopped a few inches away this time, my heart already picking up speed. For a moment, I hesitated. Because last night, I had not just found something hidden. I had stepped into it. And once you step into something like that, there is no stepping back out. I pressed my hand against the panel again, the same spot, the same cold surface. It is me, I whispered, my voice barely there. Emily. The silence stretched, longer than before, and doubt started to creep in again, slow and quiet. Maybe she would not answer this time. Maybe last night had been a mistake. Maybe she had been taken somewhere else, moved, erased, like she had never been there at all. Then I felt it. Not a sound. Not yet. A faint vibration beneath my palm, like movement on the other side. And then her voice came, clearer this time, closer. You came back. Something in the way she said it made my chest tighten, like she had not expected me to. Like no one ever had. I said I would. I replied softly, even though I had not actually promised anything. But it felt like I had. There was a small pause, and when she spoke again, her voice carried something new. Not just fear. Recognition. I thought he would stop you, she said. My breath caught. I glanced down the hallway instinctively, even though I already knew it was empty. He almost did, I admitted. He saw me. The words hung there, heavy and real, and for a second, neither of us spoke. Then, quietly, almost like she was confirming something she already suspected, she asked, "Did he look at the wall?" I closed my eyes briefly, remembering the exact moment, the slight shift of his gaze, the way it had not lingered but had not needed to. "Yes," I said. There was no hesitation this time. No confusion. Just a simple, steady response from the other side that changed everything. "Then you do not have much time." "What do you mean I do not have much time?" I asked, my voice dropping even lower, instinctively shrinking into the quiet like it could protect me. My eyes flicked down the hallway again, every nerve suddenly sharper, every shadow feeling like it might move if I looked away too long. The house was waking up. I could feel it now. Distant footsteps. A door closing somewhere far off. Morning was coming, and with it, people. Eyes. Rules. "He always knows," she said softly from the other side of the wall. Not dramatic. Not afraid. Just certain. That was what unsettled me the most. Not panic. Not urgency. Certainty. "Knows what?" I whispered, pressing closer to the panel, my shoulder almost brushing it now. "When someone gets too close," she answered. My stomach tightened, the words settling deeper than I wanted them to. Too close. I thought about last night. The way Alexander had stopped. The way his eyes had shifted. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Recognition. Like he had seen that moment before. Like he had been waiting for it. "Has anyone else?" I hesitated, then forced the question out. "Has anyone else heard you?" The silence that followed was different this time. Not empty. Not hesitant. Just quiet in a way that already felt like an answer. "They did not come back," she said. My chest felt tight, like the air around me had thinned. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my thoughts steady, trying not to let them run too far ahead of me. "What happens to them?" I asked. The question barely made it out before I wished I had not said it at all. Another pause. Longer. Heavier. When she spoke again, her voice dropped even lower. "They stop asking questions." That was it. No explanation. No detail. But it was enough. Enough to make something cold settle in my chest. Something that told me this was not just about a hidden room or a secret someone wanted to keep quiet. This was a pattern. A system. Something that had been happening long before I ever pressed my hand against that wall. I pulled my hand back slowly, staring at the panel like it might change if I looked at it long enough. "Then why are you still here?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Because if others had disappeared, if others had been silenced, then why was she still behind that wall, still able to speak, still waiting? The answer came without hesitation this time. "Because I am not supposed to exist," she said. The words landed deeper than anything else she had said so far, heavier than the name, heavier than the warning. Not supposed to exist. Not hidden. Not protected. Erased. I felt a chill run through me, slow and deliberate, like something inside the house had just shifted again. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice barely steady now. For a moment, she did not answer, and I wondered if I had pushed too far, if I had asked something she could not say out loud. Then I heard it. Not her voice. A sound. Faint. Metallic. Somewhere deeper behind the wall. Like something unlocking. My breath caught, my eyes snapping to the panel as I stepped back instinctively, my heart racing again. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. There was no answer. Just the sound again. Closer this time. Slower. Deliberate. And then her voice came back, but it was different now. Not quiet. Not distant. Right there, on the other side. "You need to go," she said quickly. "Now." The urgency hit me instantly, sharp and real, cutting through everything else. "Why?" I asked, even as my feet started to move on their own, backing away from the wall. "Because he is already here." The words had barely left her mouth when I felt it. Not a sound. Not a step. A presence. Behind me. Close enough that I did not need to turn around to know exactly who it was. I did not turn around right away. My body already knew what my mind was still trying to deny. And for a second, I just stood there, frozen between the wall and the presence behind me, my heartbeat so loud it felt like it might fill the entire hallway. The air shifted. Not colder. Controlled. Like everything had just been adjusted without a sound. "Emily," his voice came, calm and even, close enough now that I could feel it more than hear it. Not raised. Not sharp. but there was something underneath it that made my fingers curl slightly at my sides. I turned slowly, forcing my expression into something neutral, something small, something that did not give anything away. Alexander Romano stood less than 3 feet behind me, his posture relaxed, his hands loosely at his sides, like he had been there the whole time and I had simply failed to notice. His eyes met mine, steady and unreadable, but there was a weight in them now that had not been there before. Not curiosity, confirmation. "You start early," he said, glancing briefly at the hallway, then back at me. The question was not in his words. It was in the space between them. I swallowed, keeping my voice steady. "I could not sleep," I said. It was not a lie, just not the whole truth. He studied me for a moment, and the silence stretched long enough to make every second feel deliberate, like he was deciding how much I already knew. Then his gaze shifted, just slightly, to the wall behind me. This time it lingered. Not long, not obvious, but long enough. My pulse spiked, and I forced myself not to follow his eyes, not to look back, not to confirm anything. If I looked, I would give it away. And something told me I could not afford that. "This wing is restricted," he said finally, his tone still calm, still controlled, but the meaning beneath it clearer now. Not a reminder. A line. I nodded quickly, lowering my gaze just enough to appear compliant. "Yes, sir," I said. My voice sounded steady. I was not sure how. He took a step closer, and I felt it immediately, the shift in distance, the way the hallway seemed to narrow around us. "Then why are you here?" he asked. The question landed softly. That made it worse. My mind raced, searching for something simple, something believable, something that would not pull me deeper into whatever this was. "I got lost," I said. It sounded weak the moment it left my mouth. This house did not allow people to get lost. Not twice. Not by accident. His eyes held mine, and for a second I thought he might push further, might take another step, might say something that would force everything into the open. Instead, he exhaled quietly, almost like a decision had been made. "You should not wander," he said. Not angry, not kind, just final. I nodded again, gripping the edge of the cloth in my hand tighter than I realized. It will not happen again. That part felt like a promise I might not be able to keep. He watched me for another second, then stepped back, creating space where there had been none. The shift was immediate. The pressure eased, just enough for me to breathe again. "Good," he said. Then, as if the moment had never happened, as if the wall behind me held nothing at all, he turned and walked down the hallway, his steps measured, his presence fading with the same quiet control it had arrived with. I did not move until he was gone. Not until the sound of his footsteps disappeared completely. Only then did I let out the breath I had been holding, my hands trembling now that I was alone again. Slowly, carefully, I turned back toward the wall. The panel looked the same. Smooth, silent, empty, like it had always been that way. But I knew better now. I stepped closer, my voice barely more than a breath. "Are you still there?" For a moment, nothing. Then, faint and careful, like even speaking was a risk, her voice returned. "He knows," she whispered. I closed my eyes briefly, the truth settling deeper than before, heavier than anything else. Not suspicion, not doubt, knowledge. And this time, it was not just her secret anymore. It was mine. I should have walked away after that. That would have been the smart thing, the safe thing. But the truth about the Romano estate was something I was only beginning to understand. Safety was not about where you stood. It was about what you knew. And now I knew too much. I stayed there longer than I should have, my hand still resting against the wall, my thoughts racing in directions I could not control. "Then tell me what he knows," I whispered, my voice steadier than I felt. There was a pause on the other side, like she was choosing her words carefully, like every sentence mattered. "He does not know you spoke to me," she said finally. "Not yet. Not yet." The words did not comfort me. They made everything worse. Because that meant time was the only thing standing between what had already happened and what would happen next. "Then what does he know?" I asked. This time, her answer came quicker. "He knows someone is listening again." Again. The words settled in my chest with a weight that felt familiar now, like each new piece of truth was just confirming something darker underneath. I closed my eyes briefly, picturing the way his gaze had paused on the wall, the way it had not needed to linger to understand. He had seen it before. Not me. Not exactly. But this moment. This pattern. You said others heard you, I said quietly. What happened to them? The silence that followed stretched longer than before, and I almost thought she would not answer at all. Then her voice returned, softer now, like it had moved farther away. They stopped coming back, she said. The same words as before. But this time, they felt different. Not just a warning. A history. I let out a slow breath, my fingers pressing harder into the panel, grounding myself in something real, while everything else felt like it was shifting. Why are you still here? I asked again, the question that had not left my mind. If he knew before, if others disappeared, why did he not? I stopped, unable to finish the thought. She understood anyway. Because I am not a mistake he can erase, she said. Her voice changed slightly as she spoke, steadier, clearer, like she was remembering something instead of just surviving it. I am the reason he built the wall. That made me freeze. Not trapped behind it. The reason for it. What did you do? I asked, my voice barely more than a breath. There was a small pause, and when she answered, it was not fear I heard. It was certainty. I remembered something he needed forgotten. The words settled deep, and for a moment I just stood there, trying to understand what that meant. Not a crime. Not a mistake. A memory. Something that existed whether anyone wanted it to or not. About what? I asked. My heart was already racing before she even answered. I felt it, like the moment was about to tip into something irreversible. About our mother, she said. My breath caught, my mind immediately searching for something to hold on to, something I already knew. The Romano family history was clear. Their mother had died years ago. An accident. That was the story everyone repeated. That was the story written everywhere. What about her? I asked, even though part of me was already bracing for the answer. The silence on the other side stretched just long enough to make it feel heavier than anything she had said before. Then her voice came back, low and certain, the kind of truth that does not need to be loud to change everything. She did not die the way he said she did. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. The words did not feel real, like they did not belong in the same world as the polished floors and perfect silence of the Romano estate. Their mother had died in an accident. That was not just a story. That was fact. It was written in articles, whispered in conversations, repeated so many times it had become something permanent, something untouchable. And yet, standing there with my hand pressed against a hidden wall, listening to a voice that was never supposed to exist, I felt that certainty begin to crack. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely steady, my thoughts already spiraling ahead of me. Everyone knows what happened. The answer came slowly this time, like she was choosing each word with care, like she understood exactly how much it would change. Everyone knows what he allowed them to know, she said. The distinction settled deep, quiet, but undeniable. Allowed. Not told. Not explained. Controlled. I swallowed hard, my fingers pressing harder into the panel, as if grounding myself could keep everything else from shifting. Then what really happened? I asked. My heart was already racing, like it knew the answer would not be something simple, not something safe. There was a pause, longer than before, and I could almost feel her pulling the memory forward, something buried but never gone. She wanted to leave, she said finally. The words were soft, but they carried weight. Leave the house. Leave him. Leave everything he was building. I frowned, confusion cutting through the fear. That did not fit the image anyone had ever painted. The Romano family was always described as united, strong, untouchable. Not fractured. Not broken. Why? I asked. Because she knew what it was turning into, she replied. There was something in her voice now, something sharper, like she was not just remembering, but reliving it. And she did not want us to become part of it. Us. The word echoed in my mind, pulling everything back to the one truth that had started this. She was his sister. Hidden. Erased. What happened the night she died? I asked, my voice dropping even lower, like the house itself might hear me if I spoke too loudly. The silence that followed felt different this time. Not hesitation. Not fear. Finality. When she spoke again, her voice was steady, certain in a way that made my chest tighten. She did not die that night, she said. I froze, the words hitting harder than anything else she had told me. Not dead. Not then. What do you mean? I whispered, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might give me away. She was taken away, she continued. Hidden. Like me. The hallway suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. By who? I asked, even though part of me already knew the answer I did not want to hear. There was no pause this time, no hesitation, just the truth, simple and irreversible. By him. My hand slipped from the wall, my pulse spiking as the full weight of it settled in. Not an accident, not a loss, a decision, controlled, hidden, just like everything else in this house. Why would he do that? I asked, my voice barely more than a breath now. The answer came softer this time, but it carried something heavier than anything before it. Not just truth, understanding. Because losing her would have made him weak, she said. But controlling the story made him untouchable. I closed my eyes for a second, the words echoing in my mind, reshaping everything I thought I understood about this place, about him. And then she added, quieter now, like a final piece I was not ready for. And because she chose me over him. The words did not fade after she said them. They stayed, hung in the air between us like something alive, something that refused to be ignored. Because she chose me over him. I opened my eyes slowly, staring at the wall in front of me, but I was not seeing it anymore. I was seeing something else. A choice. A fracture. A moment where a family stopped being a family and became something else entirely. What does that mean? I asked, my voice quieter now, not because I was afraid of being heard, but because something inside me was beginning to understand. She did not answer right away. For the first time since I had met her, the silence felt heavy with something deeper than memory. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, but steadier than before. He needed loyalty, she said. Absolute. Without question. Without hesitation. I frowned slightly, trying to follow the shape of what she was saying, trying to fit it into something I could understand. And your mother? I started. She believed in something else. She finished for me. She believed in leaving. The word felt simple. But in this house, in this world, it sounded impossible. Leave. As if it was ever that easy. As if anyone connected to the Romano name could just walk away. She was going to take me with her. The voice continued, quieter now, like the memory was pulling her deeper inside it. She had everything planned. She waited until he trusted her again. Until he thought she had accepted it. My chest tightened, the pieces starting to come together in a way that felt too precise to be anything but real. But he found out, I said. It was not a question. The silence on the other side confirmed it before she even spoke. He always finds out, she said. The same certainty. The same quiet truth that did not need explanation. I swallowed, my mind replaying everything she had told me. Every word, every detail, building something larger than I wanted it to be. So he stopped her. I said, my voice barely more than a breath. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough to matter. He changed the story, she replied. Not stopped. Changed. The distinction made my stomach turn, the realization settling in deeper than anything before. This was not just about what happened. It was about what was allowed to be remembered, what was allowed to exist. And you? I asked. Why did he keep you? The question felt important. Maybe the most important one yet. Because if everything else had been erased, rewritten, controlled, then why had she been left behind at all? This time, the answer came without hesitation. Because I saw her, she said. My breath caught. That night, after everything changed, I saw her before they took her away. My heart started pounding again, louder now, sharper, like it was trying to keep up with the truth unfolding in front of me. And you remembered, I said. Yes. Just one word. But it carried everything. That was the difference. Not what happened, not what was done, but what was remembered. So he hid you, I whispered. He hid the memory. The silence that followed felt like agreement. Like confirmation. Like something locking into place. I stepped back slightly, my mind racing, trying to process what this meant, not just for her, but for everything. For him. For the story that had been told over and over until it felt untouchable. Why tell me this? I asked finally, the question that had been building since the beginning. Why now? For a moment, there was no answer. Then her voice came back, softer than before, but with something new underneath it. Not fear. Not just urgency. Intention. Because you heard me, she said. And that means he will not stop watching you. My chest tightened again, the truth settling in like something inevitable. I was already part of it. Whether I wanted to be or not. Then what am I supposed to do? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. This time, the answer came immediately. Clear. Certain. And more dangerous than anything she had said so far. Find the door. Find the door. The words echoed in my head long after she said them, louder than anything else, louder than the silence of the hallway, louder than the careful rhythm of my own breathing. I stared at the wall, my mind trying to catch up to what she was asking, to what that meant. A door, not a wall, not a prison, something that could open, something that had been opened before. Where is it? I asked, my voice low but urgent now, my fingers already moving along the paneling again, tracing edges, pressing lightly, as if something might give. There had to be a seam, a weakness, something hidden in plain sight. Not here, she said. This is only where I can't hear you. I paused, my hand still against the wall, frustration rising quickly now, sharp and unfamiliar. Then where? I whispered. You said find it. I cannot find something if I do not know where to look. The silence stretched for a second, and then her voice came back, quieter, like she was reaching for something she had not touched in a long time. He does not use the same path twice, she said. But there is one place he always goes before he comes here. My mind shifted instantly, latching onto the pattern, the logic beneath the secrecy. Not random. Controlled. Repeated. Where? I asked again. This time, she answered without hesitation. The study. The word landed with weight. I knew that room. Everyone did. It was not hidden. It was not restricted in the same way the East Wing was. But it was never empty. Never unguarded. Never a place someone like me was supposed to be alone. That is where he decides things, she continued softly. That is where he remembers. I swallowed, the implication settling in. Not just a room. A center. A place where the version of the truth he allowed to exist was chosen. And the door is there. I asked. Not a door you can see, she replied, but a door he uses. I stepped back slightly, my mind already moving, already trying to map the house in a way I never had before. The study sat on the west side, 2 floors above, near the long corridor lined with portraits. I had cleaned it once, months ago, under direct supervision, told not to touch anything that was not already placed for me. I remembered the desk, the shelves, the way the room felt different, like it held more than just objects. I cannot just walk in there, I said, more to myself than to her. He will know. He will know anyway, she said quietly. The certainty in her voice stopped me. Not fear, not doubt, just truth. Then why does it matter? I asked, my pulse picking up again, my thoughts moving faster now, sharper. Because knowing is not the same as stopping you, she said. I froze for a second, the words settling in a way that felt important. Not the same. Not yet. What happens if I find it? I asked. This time, her answer came slower, like it carried more weight than anything before. Then you will see what he hid, she said. Not just me. Not just her. Everything. Everything. The word echoed, bigger than the hallway, bigger than the house. Bigger than me. I glanced down the corridor again, the morning light beginning to shift, the house waking up more fully now. Time was moving. And so was whatever this was becoming. I looked back at the wall, my reflection faint in the polished surface, my own eyes staring back at me like they belonged to someone else. Someone who had already crossed a line they could not uncross. I will find it, I said quietly. I did not know if I was promising her or myself, but it felt like both. For a moment, there was no answer. Then, softly, almost like something she had not said in a long time, her voice came back. Be careful, Emily. I nodded, even though she could not see it, my hand dropping from the wall as I turned away. The hallway stretched out in front of me, unchanged, perfect, silent. But it did not feel the same anymore. Because now I knew. Somewhere inside this house, there was a door that was never meant to be found. And I was already on my way to it. I had never noticed how many eyes the house had until I started looking for the door. Not cameras. Not guards. Something else. Patterns. Timing. The way footsteps always appeared at the same minute. The way certain hallways stayed empty just long enough before someone passed through them again. The Romano estate did not need to watch you directly. It guided you into being seen. I moved carefully through the morning, keeping my routine exactly the same, my head down, my steps measured, every movement rehearsed so nothing about me felt different. But inside, everything had changed. Every corridor was no longer just a path. It was a possibility. Every door I passed was no longer just a boundary. It was a question. By 10:15 a.m., the house was fully awake. Staff moving in quiet coordination, voices low, footsteps controlled. I kept to the edges, carrying a tray I did not need, giving myself a reason to be anywhere I needed to be. The study sat 2 floors up, at the end of the west corridor, a place that always felt slightly removed from the rest of the house, like it belonged to a different version of it. I had cleaned it once. That memory stayed sharp. The heavy door, the smell of old wood, and something colder underneath. The way the air inside felt still, like it held on to things. Getting there was not the hard part. Walking in without being noticed was. I reached the staircase at exactly 10:22, the time I knew the main staff rotated positions, the guards near the west wing shifting just enough to create a gap that lasted less than a minute. I did not hesitate. Hesitation drew attention. I moved. Up the stairs. Left at the landing. Down the corridor lined with portraits that watched without blinking. Alexander Romano at different ages. Different versions of the same control. Different reminders of who this house belonged to. I kept my eyes forward, but I felt them anyway. By the time I reached the study door, my pulse had already picked up, steady but fast, like it knew what was coming before I did. The door was closed. It always was. I paused just long enough to listen. Nothing. No voices. No movement. Just silence. I placed my hand on the handle slowly, my fingers tightening slightly as I turned it. The door opened without resistance. That was the first thing that felt wrong. It should have been locked, restricted, guarded, but it was not. I stepped inside, closing it quietly behind me, and for a second I just stood there, letting my eyes adjust, letting the room settle around me. It looked exactly the same as I remembered. Large desk, floor-to-ceiling shelves, everything in perfect order. But now I was not here to clean. I was here to find something that was not supposed to be found. Not a door you can see. Her voice echoed in my mind. A door he uses. I moved slowly, my steps quiet against the dark wood floor, my eyes scanning every surface, every corner, every detail that might be slightly out of place. The desk was untouched. The shelves perfectly aligned. No visible seams. No hidden panels. Nothing that looked like a door. My frustration started to rise, sharp and quick. This room was too perfect, too controlled, which meant the answer was not in what I could see. It was in what did not belong. I turned slowly, taking in the room again, forcing myself to look differently this time, not for something obvious, but for something intentional. That was when I noticed it. The portrait above the fireplace, larger than the others, centered, not of Alexander, not of the Empire, of a woman, his mother. I stepped closer without thinking, my pulse quickening as I stared at it. She looked calm, elegant, untouched by everything I had just learned. But something about it felt wrong. Not the painting itself. The placement. Too central. Too deliberate. Like it was not just meant to be seen. It was meant to be used. I hesitated for only a second before reaching out, my fingers brushing the edge of the frame. The moment I touched it, I felt it. Not movement. Not yet. A shift. Subtle. Mechanical. Hidden. My breath caught. My heart slamming once, hard enough to echo in my ears. And then, slowly, almost silently, the wall behind the portrait gave way. The movement was so quiet I almost thought I imagined it. Almost. But the air changed. That was the first thing I noticed. A subtle shift, like the room had exhaled something it had been holding for years. The portrait tilted forward just enough to break the illusion of stillness, revealing a narrow opening behind it, dark and precise, like it had been waiting for exactly this moment. My hand hovered in the air for a second, my pulse loud and steady in my ears, before I pushed the frame slightly further. The opening widened without resistance, smooth and controlled, the kind of mechanism that had been designed not to fail, not to be found. I stepped closer, my breath shallow now, my eyes adjusting to the darkness beyond. It was not a room. Not exactly. More like a passage. Narrow. Hidden. Intentional. The kind of place that did not exist unless someone needed it to. I hesitated at the threshold, my mind flashing through everything she had said. Not a door you can see. A door he uses. This was it. It had to be. I stepped inside. The air was cooler here, heavier, carrying a faint scent of something older than the rest of the house, something untouched by the careful perfection outside. The light from the study faded quickly behind me, leaving only a thin line along the edge of the opening as my eyes adjusted to the dim space. The walls were smooth, unmarked, guiding me forward without offering any distraction. any indication of where I was going or how far it would take me. I moved slowly, each step deliberate, my hand brushing lightly against the surface beside me, grounding myself in something real as everything else felt uncertain. The passage did not turn. It did not branch. It led in one direction only, forward. After a few steps, I noticed something on the wall. Not a seam, not a door. Marks. Faint. Almost invisible unless you were looking for them. I leaned closer, my fingers tracing lightly over the surface. Lines. Not random. Deliberate. Words. My breath caught as I realized what I was looking at. They were carved. Not deep. Not violent. Just enough to remain. I leaned in further, my eyes adjusting as I tried to read them. Dates. Names. Repeated phrases. I do not belong here. Please. Someone will hear me. The words sent a chill through me, sharper than anything else I had felt so far. She had not been alone. Not the first. Not the only. This passage had been used before. Many times. I stepped back slightly, my heart racing now, the weight of it pressing in from all sides. This was not just a secret. This was a pattern. A history that had been hidden so carefully, it had become invisible. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep moving, because stopping here felt worse somehow, like staying in one place would make everything collapse around me. The passage continued for what felt like longer than it should have, the silence deep and complete, until finally, I saw it. A door. Not hidden. Not disguised. Just there. At the end. Plain. Solid. Waiting. My steps slowed as I approached it, my pulse steady but heavy, like every beat carried the weight of what I was about to see. This was the door. The one she meant. The one he used. The one that led to everything he had hidden. I stopped just inches away, my hand hovering near the handle, my reflection faint in the surface. For a moment, I hesitated, because once I opened it, there would be no more questions. Only answers. And something told me those answers would not let me walk away. I closed my eyes for a second, steadying my breath, then reached forward and turned the handle. The door did not resist. It opened slowly, smoothly, like it had been waiting for someone to finally choose to see what was behind it. The air inside was different, not just colder, still, untouched. I stepped forward carefully, the faint light from the passage behind me stretching just far enough to reveal the shape of the room beyond. It was not large, not like the study, not like the rest of the estate. It felt contained, intentional, like every inch of it existed for one purpose. I moved further inside, my eyes adjusting as details began to form out of the dim light. A chair, a small table, shelves along the wall, and then I saw it. Photographs, dozens of them, arranged with precision, not displayed, organized, documented. My breath caught as I stepped closer, my hand lifting slightly before I realized what I was looking at. They were not random. They were not strangers. They were her. The same girl I had heard behind the wall. Different ages. Different moments. Some older. Some younger. All of them captured from a distance. Watched. Tracked. Remembered. My chest tightened, something deeper than fear settling in as I reached out, my fingers hovering just above one of the images. She looked normal. Alive. Free. Standing in sunlight that did not exist where she was now. I swallowed hard, my mind trying to reconcile the two versions of the same person, the one in the photographs, and the one behind the wall. You found it. The voice came from behind me, not through the wall this time, not distant, not hidden, real, close. I turned sharply, my heart jumping as I saw her standing in the doorway, framed by the faint light from the passage. For a second, I could not speak, because she was exactly as I had imagined and nothing like I expected. Pale, still, but not broken. Her eyes met mine, steady and searching, like she had been waiting for this moment longer than I could understand. How? I started, my voice barely there. She stepped inside slowly, her gaze moving briefly across the room before returning to me. He comes here, she said softly, not to check on me, to remember me. The words settled in, heavy and precise, and I looked back at the photographs, at the careful way they had been placed, preserved, controlled. Not erased, not forgotten, kept, but only here, only like this. He did not want to lose you, I said quietly, the realization forming as I spoke it. She shook her head once, slow and certain. He did not want to lose control, she corrected. The distinction changed everything. I felt it settle in my chest, reshaping everything I thought I understood about him, about this house, about what had been hidden and why. Then why show me this? I asked, my voice steady now despite the weight of everything around us. Why let me find it? She held my gaze for a long moment before answering, and when she did, there was something different in her voice. Not just truth. Choice. Because now you understand, she said. And understanding changes things. My pulse picked up again, not from fear this time, but from something sharper, something clearer. Awareness. He will not let this stay hidden, I said. It was not a guess. It was inevitable. She nodded slightly. No, she agreed. He will not. The room felt smaller now, the walls closer, the silence heavier, like the moment itself was narrowing into something final. I looked at the photographs one more time, then back at her, at the reality of her standing there, no longer just a voice behind a wall, no longer something hidden. Something real. Something seen. Then what happens now? I asked. The question felt bigger than the room, bigger than both of us. She did not hesitate. Now, she said quietly, you decide which version of his story survives. The words settled between us, final and unshakable. And for the first time since I heard the crying behind the wall, I understood something that felt even more dangerous than the truth. It was not the secret that would destroy him. It was who chose to reveal it.